How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the most rare and valuable coins in Canada. Today we're going to be taking a look at 5 extremely valuable Canadian coins, some of which you may already own or you could come across in your collections, pocket change, or coin roll hunts. And if identified correctly, some of these pieces could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Whether released into general circulation, part of limited sets, or struck under unique circumstances, these coins all share one thing in common. They're highly sought after and incredibly valuable to collectors. In this video, we'll explore the historical context surrounding each of these rare pieces and delve into why they hold such a significant place in Canadian numismatic history. Also, we will discuss any distinguishing and identifying features, their significance among collectors, and also the potential value if you happen to own or find one of these rare coins. Before we do get into this, I would really appreciate if you would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content as it is being released. And make sure to stick around until the end of the video so you can find out which is the most rare and valuable of these coins that you could be lucky enough to own or find. And then without any further ado, what do you say we get right into it and take a look at 5 extremely valuable Canadian coins that you might own or can find. Let's get it, guys. To get a good understanding of the rare and elusive 2000p Canadian dime, we first have to travel back to the year 2000, which was a time of optimism and celebration as Canada embraced the dawn of a new millennium. Amid this excitement, the Canadian Mint introduced a coin into circulation that would catch the attention of collectors and coin roll hunters, and that is the 2000p Canadian dime. This coin features the typical iconic blue nose schooner design on its reverse side. The blue nose schooner design is a tribute to Canada's rich maritime heritage, and the blue nose itself, a legendary racing ship celebrated for its speed and elegance, has become a symbol of national pride. The design first appeared on Canadian 10-cent coins in the year 1937 and has remained the standard dime design until present day. The blue nose design has endured for nearly a century as a hallmark of Canadian coinage, admired by collectors the world over. Now, what sets the 2000p Canadian dime apart is not actually its design, but it's the story behind its creation. This coin holds a unique place in Canadian numismatic history as one of the first dimes to feature the P mint or composition mark, a symbol that marks significant changes in both the Canadian Mint's operations and the composition of Canadian coins. The P mint or composition mark, which is located just beneath the bust of Queen Elizabeth II, signifies that the coin was struck using the Canadian Mint's new multiply plated steel technology. The transition from a nickel-based alloy to a new steel core in Canadian coins was a pivotal moment for coin production, not just in Canada, but for the entire world. The Mint aimed at reducing production costs and enhancing the durability of Canada's circulating coins. Now, you might be wondering what actually makes the 2000p dime so special. Well, unlike its common counterparts, this coin actually wasn't intended for widespread circulation. While 2000p Canadian nickels were released for circulation with a very low mintage figure of around 5 million, the dimes and quarters featuring the P mint mark were not officially issued for circulation until the year 2001. This makes any 2000p dimes that exist today an accidental release or perhaps the result of testing conducted by the Mint. Some of these coins may have slipped into the wilds of circulation through vending machine companies testing the new compositions, or possibly through other experimental purposes. Regardless, the 2000p Canadian dimes were not meant to end up in public hands, and that is where their story began. The exact number of 2000p Canadian dimes produced remains somewhat of a mystery, but it's widely believed that there are no more than 250 of these coins that escaped into the wilds of circulation. This coin's incredible rarity combined with the fascinating circumstances of its release definitely makes it one of Canada's holy grail coins. I have known coin roll hunters who have found coins very similar to these, and there was a lot of chaos at the Canadian Mint around the year 2000. With the change of composition and circulating coins, and also the upcoming Millennium Quarter series. Usually during periods of heavy workloads and changes, a few legendary coins will come into existence, and the 2000p Canadian dime is a prime example. Now, to identify one of these rare gems, all you need to do is look for a little P mint or composition mark beneath the Queen's bust on the obverse side of the coin, which was put there to indicate the coin's new steel composition. The reverse will have the typical blue nose schooner design. The common regular issue dimes in the year 2000 will not have the P mint mark, but they will have the same blue nose schooner design with Queen Elizabeth's bust. There were also sets featuring 2000 dated dimes issued from the Winnipeg Mint, and they were issued with a small W mint mark to the bottom right of Queen Elizabeth's bust. These were not intended for circulation and are only worth slightly more than business or circulation strikes, but they are more rare and have fairly low mintage figures. So if you ever find a coin in your pocket change with a W mint mark, you should definitely still hold on to it, but it's actually the P mint mark on the 2000 Canadian dimes that you are looking for. The 2000p Canadian dime is not classified as an heir. Instead, its appeal and value lies in its extreme scarcity and unique backstory. Unlike the infamous 1969 large date dime, which is regarded as the most rare and valuable Canadian circulation dime, the 2000p dime stands out for its rarity and its connection to a pivotal moment in Canadian coinage history. When it comes to value, these coins can fetch impressive sums depending on their condition and the provenance given with the piece. While they might not make you an instant millionaire, their numismatic significance ensures that they are worth far more than their face value. In the hands of an eager collector, these dimes can easily command prices in the hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their state of preservation. I just wanted to give you guys an important side note. The Canadian Mint did issue limited proof-lace sets in the year 1999 featuring the P mint mark. These coins were part of a planned release with a mintage figure of around 20,000, and while they are collectible in their own right, their story is distinct from the 2000p Canadian dime. The real allure of the 2000p dime lies in its accidental release, likely tied to testing purposes, which makes it far more rare and more exciting for collectors. But if you do ever find a 1999 Canadian coin in your pocket change with a P mint mark, you should still definitely hold on to it because it is worth more than the face value. Now, some of the details and specifications for this piece, if any of these are off, it may indicate that it is not a legitimate or authentic example. The composition for the 2000p Canadian dime is 92% steel, 5.5% copper, and 2.5% nickel, which is considered multiply plated steel. It has a weight of 1.75 grams, a diameter of 18.03 millimeters, a thickness of 1.22 millimeters. The designers for the obverse were Dorota Pedri Hunt and Augo Aran, and the designer for the reverse was Emmanuel Hahn. The edge of the coin should be reeded, it should be magnetic, and it should also have a die axis in metal alignment, which is the standard for Canadian, British, and Australian coins. Now, what do you say we get into the current market values for the 2000p Canadian dime? Just to give you guys a reference point, if you find a 1999p Canadian dime, whether you pull it out of the set or you find it in your pocket change, it means it will have come from the testing set that was issued in the year 1999. This set was limited to a mintage figure of around 20,000, so it makes the value a little bit more than face. If you were to find one of these 1999p Canadian dimes, it can be worth around $30 for an NBU 66 to 67. So it is obviously worth much more than face value when it gets a high grade, but still not super rare or valuable. The regular issue Canadian 2000 dime without the P mint mark can be worth around $15 for an NBU 66 or a brilliant uncirculated 66 for the business strike. Now, if you were to find a 2000p Canadian dime in your pocket change, so it's pretty beat up and worn, you can easily get anywhere from $50 to a couple $100 for it. Collectors definitely want these things to fill their albums out, and they are pretty sought after. Now, as we start to get into the NBU territory, meaning brilliant uncirculated. It can be worth around $700 for an NBU 60, and the maximum price currently this coin is appraised for is around $3,280 for an NBU 66. If it were to grade any higher, you might see a pretty good price jump. We could easily be talking a $5,000 to $10,000 dime. When it comes to coin collecting or coin roll hunting, Canadian dimes, unfortunately there isn't too much to look for, so this 2000p definitely adds some flavor and spice. These coins, although extremely legendary and rare, are out there and they can be found. Whether you're just casually looking through your pocket change, or you go to the bank and you get a box of coin rolls, or maybe even just a few loose rolls to search through, these things are out there and some of them are unaccounted for, and they are just waiting to be discovered. The Canadian quarter, officially known as the 25-cent coin, is a key component of Canada's coinage system. Worth 25 cents face value, or 1/4 of a Canadian dollar, this small circular coin has a distinctive silver appearance thanks to its multiply plated steel composition. It features a reeded edge and is often compared to its American counterpart, which shares the same value and general size. The quarter has been an integral part of Canadian currency for well over a century. Since their initial introduction, every Canadian coin has featured the effigy of the reigning British monarch on the obverse. However, the reverse designs have seen significant changes over the years. While the traditional and most iconic design showcases a caribou, which is an emblem of Canada's northern wilderness, the Royal Canadian Mint facility introduces commemorative editions that celebrate the nation's history, culture, and achievements quite regularly. In Canada, 25-cent coins are currently manufactured at the Royal Canadian Mint's state-of-the-art facility in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Canadian quarters are struck in massive quantities, with up to 2 billion circulation coins being produced each year. Since the year 2000, the Mint has employed its patented multiply plated steel technology, which enhances durability and cost efficiency for Canadian coinage. This innovation was initially applied to 5, 10, 25, and 50-cent coins, but in the year 2012, it was extended to the loonie and toonie. One of the most notable series of Canadian quarters came to the lead-up of the new millennium. In 1999, the Royal Canadian Mint announced a national contest inviting Canadians to design a special set of 24 quarters, one for each month of both the years 1999 and 2000. The designs in 1999 focused on reflecting Canada's past, while the designs for the year 2000 symbolized the country's future. Each coin in 1999 was inscribed with its month of issue, while the 2000 quarters featured thematic labels such as pride and ingenuity. The response for this new quarter series was overwhelming, with thousands of Canadians submitting designs that captured the nation's spirit. Despite being produced in vast numbers, making most of these Millennium quarters only worth their face value, there are a few rare varieties that exist, and they are highly sought after by collectors. There are a few different quarters from the year 2000 which feature unique variations on their obverse designs, making them exceptionally valuable in the global numismatic community. Collectors and enthusiasts continue to search for these elusive variations, hoping to uncover a hidden treasure, whether they are coin roll hunting or just casually searching through their pocket change. To this day, the Canadian quarter remains one of the most iconic and versatile coins in circulation. Whether it's the traditional caribou design or one of the many commemorative issues that celebrates Canada's rich and vibrant history, these coins serve as both everyday currency and cherished collectibles for generations to come. Now, what do you say we discuss the coins that you are all here to find out about? In the late 1990s, the Canadian Mint began transitioning from nickel-based coinage to a more cost-effective multiply plated steel technology. This new and revolutionary process involved electromagnetically applying a thin layer of nickel, then a layer of copper, and then a final layer of nickel to a steel core. This change reduced production costs, improved durability, and allowed for the creation of unique electromagnetic signatures that enhance the security of the coins and also allow for vending machine compatibility. To test the effectiveness of these new plated coins, the Canadian Mint produced a limited number of these pieces with a small P mint mark beneath the bust of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. These test pieces were primarily distributed to vending machine companies to ensure that the new coinage functioned correctly with existing mechanisms. In most cases, vending machines accepted the new plating quarters without any issues, and any that didn't were allowed to be calibrated in the time leading up to the release. It should also be noted that in 1999, the Canadian Mint released a special mint set containing each of the denominations of the new plated coins, including a special test token, and they are all marked with the P mint or composition mark on the obverse. Now, although these are pretty limited, they only made around 20,000 sets, they aren't super valuable. If you do find one of them in your pocket change, you can definitely get more than face value, but usually they're only going to be worth about $10 or $20 for a single piece, and that's if it's in really good condition. In 2000, the first widely circulated plated coins were the 2000p nickels and pennies, which were likely a preliminary trial before officially introducing plated dimes, quarters, and other denominations into circulation in 2001. However, this raises a crucial question. Why did 2000p quarters exist when they were never officially released into circulation? First, there's the 2000p December Community Quarter, for which there are only 5 certified known examples currently. Then there's the 2000p October Creativity Quarter, for which there are only 2 known examples currently. And last but not least, we have the 2000p Caribou Quarter, which will feature the standard design of the caribou on the reverse, and it will have the P mint mark on the obverse directly underneath the bust of Queen Elizabeth. There are only 2 known certified examples of the Caribou 2000p quarter, but I would actually consider this to be the rarest of the 3. The 2000p Caribou Quarter is particularly intriguing because there were 1999p Canadian quarters issued in special sets and for testing, but none were actually released into circulation or were meant to be. The regular 2000 Caribou Quarter, which features the iconic caribou design on the reverse, was officially issued in sets without the P mint mark on the obverse. However, for reasons unknown, whether due to an error or an experiment, or perhaps a mint employee mistake, some of these 2000p Caribou Quarters have surfaced. Their existence remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern Canadian numismatics. If you ever come across a 2000 Millennium Community or Creativity Quarter, or even one of the 2000 Caribou Quarters, while you are coin roll hunting or checking your pocket change, inspect it carefully for the small P mint or composition mark beneath Queen Elizabeth's bust on the obverse, because if you do find one, you may have discovered one of the rarest modern Canadian coins in existence. Due to their extreme scarcity, these coins command exceptionally high prices in the numismatic market and at auctions. While the exact values depend on the coin's condition and certification, these rare 2000p quarters have been known to sell for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars at auction. Their elusive nature means that their value could continue to rise as more collectors become aware of their significance. And I think that it is super important that as many people know about these rare coins that exist as possible. There is a program in Canada called the ARP where they actually melt down and destroy a lot of our old coins for the precious metal content. So a lot of the rare old Holy Grail coins could be being lost to the ARP, and if we could even find one more of these, it would be a Holy Grail find for Canadian numismatics. So always keep your eyes open because you never know what you can find in your pocket change. The Canadian quarter remains one of the most iconic and widely collected coins in circulation. Whether it's the classic caribou design, a commemorative issue which celebrates Canada's history, or an ultra rare variety like one of the 2000p Communities, Creativity, or Caribou quarters, or even the very low mintage 1991 quarter, these coins serve as everyday currency and cherished collectibles for generations to come. Now, what do you say we get into some of the values and auction records for these extremely rare quarters? First, we're going to start off with the 2000p October Creativity Quarter. Now, to identify this, you want to look for the October Creativity design on the reverse of the Millennium Quarter. Then you want to flip over to the obverse and look for a little P mint mark beneath the bust of Queen Elizabeth. Now, I can personally say that I have found hundreds and hundreds of these Millennium Quarters, and I have never found anything like this before. So this is usually a game of numbers. You probably want to save these up and then check them all in a big old pile, and then you can just return them to the bank or spend them, and you don't lose out any money. But for the 2000p October Creativity Quarter, it has a current estimated value of around $10,000 for an MS65 example. If you were to find one and it graded any higher, you would see some massive price jumps. You could easily be talking a $40,000, $50,000 coin if it scored in that MS67 mark. So if you ever bust open a roll of October Creativity Quarters and you find one in there with a P, you may have just hit the jackpot. Next up, we have the 2000p December Community Quarter. Now, to identify this one, you want to look for the December Community Design on the Millennium Quarter series. Then you want to flip over to the obverse and look for a little P mint mark beneath the bust of Queen Elizabeth. I do want to point out, the chances are whether you check dozens or even hundreds of these, you will probably never see that P mint mark. But when it comes to coin collecting and coin roll hunting, it is a numbers game. You want to search through as many as possible, whether you're looking for that 1973 large bust or you're looking for one of these. You want to stock up as many of these quarters as you can and then just search them all at the same time, because if these coins have been found, then that means they can be found. Now, in terms of value for the 2000p December Community Quarter, it can be worth around $12,000 for an MS60 and up to $15,000 for an MS65 example. I do want to note that one of these also sold for $10,755 for an AU55 example, and that was actually in November 23rd, 2024, so just last year, and that was for an AU55. So that one was a little bit beat up, so if you were to find one and it's been put through the meat grinder, you can still make some insane money off these. Now, last but not least, we have the 2000p Caribou Quarter. Now, to identify this one, you want to look for the iconic caribou design on the reverse of the quarter, and it will also have the date of 2000. Then you want to flip over to the obverse and you want to look under the bust of Queen Elizabeth II for a little P mint or composition mark. And if you locate that mark, you have yourself one of the rarest modern Canadian quarters in existence. Now, it is very hard to find values for this piece online, but I was able to find an auction record of $26,400 for a PCGS graded MS65, and that sold in the year 2020 in Heritage Auctions. And that was for the 2000p Caribou Quarter. Recently, collectors have been buzzing about a fascinating new discovery in Canadian coin collecting: the 1989 Canadian dime with a 180-degree rotated die. This error, also known as a coin alignment error, occurs when the reverse side of a coin is misaligned with the obverse side by 180 degrees, causing the design of the blue nose schooner on the reverse to appear upside down in relativity to the portrait of Queen Elizabeth on the obverse. This error happens when one of the dies used to strike the coins becomes improperly aligned during the minting process. Canadian coins are usually struck with two dies, one for the obverse, which will feature the portrait of the current monarch, at the time it was Queen Elizabeth II, and another one for the reverse, which for Canadian dimes showcases the portrait of the blue nose schooner. These dies are supposed to be perfectly aligned, so when you flip the coin top to bottom, both sides should remain upright. In the case of the 1989 coin alignment dime, the reverse die was rotated 180 degrees, resulting in the error being created. Such minting mistakes can occur due to improper setup of the dies or failure to correct an existing misalignment. Though errors like this are rare because of the mint's strict quality control measures, the 180-degree rotation is particularly dramatic and noteworthy, which makes it highly desirable for collectors. Errors like this can happen for a number of reasons. The most common cause is improper setup of the dies during the minting process. In some rare cases, the dies may shift during production, and if this shift goes unnoticed, it can result in a batch of coins with rotated designs. The Canadian Mint usually employs strict quality control measures to prevent errors like these from occurring and escaping the mint facility, but no system is perfect. As a result, a few air coins like the 1989 dime with a rotated die still manage to make their way into circulation. Identifying the 1989 Canadian dime rotated die error is relatively straightforward once you know what to look for. One of the easiest ways to check for this error is by using a simple tool like a cardboard coin flip. Start by placing the dime into the flip, making sure that the obverse side, which will have the portrait of the queen, is facing upright. Once the coin is secured in the flip, hold it steady and flip the entire coin flip over without changing the orientation of the coin itself. If the reverse side, featuring the design of the blue nose schooner, appears upside down, you've likely found the 180-degree rotated air. This method is particularly useful because it helps eliminate any accidental rotation or handling error during your inspection. By keeping the coin in the same orientation while flipping the entire coin flip, you can be sure that any misalignment you see is due to a rotated die and not due to how you're actually holding or perceiving the coin. While the 180-degree rotation is the most dramatic and desirable error, it's worth noting that smaller rotations, such as 45 or 90 degrees, can also occur. These less extreme rotations are still considered errors, but they tend to be less valuable than the full 180-degree coin alignment error rotation. However, for serious collectors, any degree of rotation can be a noteworthy addition to your collection. And if you do find any Canadian coin with a rotated die, even if it's only by 10 or 15 degrees, I still suggest that you hold on to it, because for the investment, honestly, to find a nickel or a dime, it's only 10 cents, and if you are able to sell it to someone who's interested in coin collecting eventually, you may be able to make a decent profit off of it. So why exactly is the 1989 Canadian dime rotated die error generating so much excitement right now? One reason is the sheer rarity of this error. While the exact number of 1989 dimes with this rotated die is still unknown, errors of this magnitude typically occur in very limited quantities. Unlike common varieties or minor errors, a 180-degree rotated die is considered a significant minting mistake, and finding one in circulation would be a rare and thrilling experience for any coin roll hunter or collector. Now, what makes this discovery even more exciting is that Canadian dimes in general don't offer a lot of varieties for collectors to hunt for. Aside from the legendary 1969 large date dime, which I have covered in some previous videos, which is considered one of the most rare Canadian coins ever minted, there aren't too many high value dimes floating around in circulation. The scarcity of rare varieties means that the 1989 rotated die error adds a new level of flavor and excitement to the hobby, giving collectors another valuable piece to look for in their searches. With more of these errors popping up and making their way through the woodwork, collectors and dealers alike are starting to recognize the potential value for coins like this. This coin's rarity, combined with the dramatic nature of the 180-degree rotation, make it a standout piece in any air coin collection. High-grade examples of air coins like this can command significant premiums, especially if the air is as visible and striking as a full rotated die. If you do believe that you found a 1989 Canadian dime with a rotated die error, the first step is to confirm its legitimacy. While identifying the rotation is straightforward, ensuring the coin is a legitimate error and not damaged or altered is crucial. Grading companies like PCGS, NGC, or ICCS here in Canada can authenticate and certify your coin, providing a professional assessment of both its error and the overall condition. So next time you are checking your pocket change or searching through some rolls of dimes, take a moment to check for that upside down blue nose, because you never know, you might just stumble upon one of the rarest modern Canadian dimes in circulation today. Now, before we get into the values for this coin, some of the details and specifications, if any of these are off, it may indicate that it is not an authentic example. The overall mintage figure for the Canadian 1989 10-cent coin is 198,693,414. It is composed of 99.9 nickel It is magnetic. It has a weight of 2.07 grams, a diameter of 18.03 millimeters, and a thickness of 1.16 millimeters. The edge of the coin is reeded. The usual die axis should be in metal alignment, but if you want to find the error, then it will be in coin alignment. The obverse was designed by Arnold Machen and the reverse by Emanuel Hahn. The mintage figure for the 1989 rotated die error is included for the overall 1989 10-cent mintage, so somewhere around 198 million dimes were made in 1989. That is a pretty high mintage figure, especially for Canadian coins, which is actually a good sign because it means that a decent number of these errors could have escaped into circulation. Now, as we get into the values for this coin, I was unfortunately not able to find any high-grade example prices, but I was able to find some low-grade prices for you guys. Just to give you guys a base price and idea, the regular 1989 can be worth around 15 cents for an AU, so that is the first price increase from its face value. It's only worth 10 cents until you get to an AU 50. But just to give you guys an idea, if you can find a 1989 dime in the coin alignment, so that is with a 180 degree rotation, it can be worth almost $400 for an AU 50. So that is not even in the mint state range, and considering the regular issue of the 1989 is only worth 15 cents in the same grade, if you were to find one of these and it did score, especially in the high mint state range, I don't doubt that you could easily get a couple $1,000s, maybe even 10,000 if it scores from an MS65 or higher. These errors, although incredibly rare and hard to find, do exist and they are out there. When I was in my coin roll hunting prime, I hunted dozens and dozens of boxes of dimes, and I was usually looking for silver in most cases. Sometimes I would put my 1969s to the side and I would give them a double look after just to see if maybe I got lucky and found the holy grail, but this is one that I would have liked to have had on my radar. I'm probably going to do some more coin roll hunts in the near future. If you guys would like to see those, just let me know down in the comments. In the year 1970, Canada issued a commemorative nickel dollar to mark the 100th anniversary of Manitoba's entry into the Canadian Confederation. It's a beautiful piece featuring an intricate design of a prairie crocus. These coins were struck in relatively large numbers for both the circulation and proof versions, and today they are reasonably common among collectors. But what if I told you that somewhere deep within the Royal Canadian Mint, a handful of these coins were secretly struck in gold? Finding any information on this coin is extremely difficult. I was not able to find any articles online or any information pertaining to how many exist, but from what I can gather, there are 6 known examples currently that exist today that are struck on gold planchettes instead of the nickel planchettes that they were intended to be struck on. However, these coins were not officially produced by the mint. This wasn't some grand government project or a special VIP issue. Instead, the prevailing theory is that these coins were created illegally by mint employees, possibly in an attempt to smuggle them out for personal profit. According to numismatic lore, these unauthorized gold strikes were uncovered, leading to a scandal within the mint. Some sources even suggest that employees were caught, punished, and the remaining unauthorized coins were either seized or destroyed. But despite efforts to erase these coins from history, at least 6 managed to survive, and their existence has continued to haunt the Canadian Mint for years ever since. Now, what is the Royal Canadian Mint's official statement or position regarding these pieces? Do they consider them to be counterfeit or collectible? The Canadian Mint has a long and complicated relationship with error coins, particularly those that were never meant to be produced. Over the years, they have generally taken the stance that such pieces fall into one of 2 categories. There are error coins that were produced due to quality control issues. True mint errors, where a coin was struck incorrectly due to a mistake during the production process. These coins, although errors, are considered collectible, and the Canadian Mint does not typically interfere with their sale. Then there are counterfeits, which are unauthorized strikes. These are coins that are made improperly or under suspicious circumstances, often without approval. The Canadian Mint considers these coins to be stolen property or fraudulent and has a history of seizing them when they appear on the market. So which of these categories does the 1970 gold Manitoba dollar fit into? Since these coins were not the result of a production mistake, but rather an alleged deliberate act by mint employees, they do not fall under the mint error category. Therefore, the Canadian Mint classifies them as counterfeits or stolen property, making them legally vulnerable to seizure. And indeed, seizures have happened. This is not just some unfounded theory, there's a long history of unauthorized Canadian coins being confiscated. Here are some notable examples. In the year 1980, a 1970 gold Manitoba dollar was seized in Cincinnati, Ohio, at the request of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. In the year 1981, a 50-cent and $1 mule air was seized at the A&A convention in Milwaukee. Another one of these same pieces was seized before a major Torex auction. In the year 1989, a Diving Goose silver dollar was seized from J&M Coin, though it was later returned to them. And around 15 to 20 Natural Legacy 25-cent coins struck in copper were seized, and a mint employee in Winnipeg was arrested. There is a legal precedent that these unauthorized coins are the property of the Canadian Mint, meaning that they can be taken at any time if you legally purchase one. Some collectors will say that certain high-value heirs are fine as long as they are openly traded in public auctions and the Canadian Mint will not interfere. However, the 1970 gold Manitoba dollar is a much different case because there are actually court orders that state that the Canadian Mint owns that coin. So if you do buy or own one, fishing it around trying to sell it publicly could actually result in its seizure. Despite the risk, these coins often fetch huge prices at auction, and for a coin that technically shouldn't exist, the 1970 gold Manitoba dollar carries an astonishing price tag. Recent auctions have seen them sell for between $10,000 and $15,000 Canadian, and it is likely that private sales go even higher. Some of the most notable sales that have occurred in the last 5 years happened on January 13th, 2020, when an MS-63 example sold at Heritage Auctions for $4,934. And almost exactly 5 years later, January 13th, 2025, that same piece was auctioned off by Heritage Auctions for an insane price of $14,688, which is a slight price reduction from 5 years prior, but considering the controversy behind this piece, it is not super surprising. The fact that PCGS has certified these coins is also incredibly interesting. Since PCGS is one of the most respected grading companies in the numismatic world, this suggests that they recognize these coins as legitimate despite the controversy surrounding them, and the situation brings up even more complexities. If a coin were seized, PCGS might have to address its involvement and liability. The Canadian Mint may have quietly allowed these coins to be legitimized to avoid legal complications, but who knows, there could be even more of these irregularities still hiding from the public eye. All of this makes the 1970 gold Manitoba dollar one of the most fascinating and mysterious Canadian coins ever produced. Now, this event took place during the 1966 to 1971 golden age of mint irregularities, a period where a surprising number of unauthorized or controversial pieces emerged from the Canadian Mint. I do want to mention that many of the most bizarre off-metal or unauthorized Canadian coins all came from this time period. Some of those pieces include, but are not limited to, a 1969 25-cent coin that was struck on a Prussian 20-mark gold planchette. There are actually multiple coins and denominations that were struck in the wrong metals throughout those years. The infamous 1967 Diving Goose silver dollar with a rotated die air was produced during this period. Now, why is it that so many of these strange and unusual coins came into existence during this time? Some believe that security was incredibly lax at the Mint during this time period, allowing employees to experiment and smuggle out items or even create their own rarities. Others speculate that certain insider coin dealers had direct access to Mint employees and may have arranged for some of these irregularities to be created. One thing is for sure, and that is that this era produced some of the most fascinating, controversial, and valuable Canadian coins that have ever been made. The 1970 Canadian Manitoba gold dollar is more than just a coin. It's an incredibly rare and valuable piece, but comes with an inherent risk that few collectors are willing to take. Would you be brave enough to own one of these, or would you fear it being seized at any moment? Or would you keep it locked away, whispering about it to only your most trusted collector friends? One thing is for sure, this coin will continue to be one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in Canadian numismatics. During the Second World War, nickel became a precious metal and a critical resource for Canada's war effort. This led to an innovative shift in the production of Canadian 5-cent coins, as the Royal Canadian Mint sought alternatives to preserve the valuable metal. This resulted in a fascinating chapter in Canadian numismatic history that gave rise to the iconic tomback and chrome-plated Victory nickels. In 1942, Canadian nickels took on a dramatic transformation. With nickel reserved for military use, the Canadian Mint turned to a brass alloy called tomback. To distinguish these yellow-tone nickels from the similarly colored 1-cent pieces, they were given a distinctive 12-sided or dodecagonal shape, which was a first in Canadian coinage. At first, the coins retained the traditional reverse beaver design in 1942, but were set to undergo a patriotic makeover in the years that followed. From 1943 to 1945, the reverse design for Canadian nickels was updated to feature a bold V, symbolizing both the coin's value, which is 5 cents in Roman numerals, and also the wartime spirit for victory in World War II. Surrounding this iconic design, the rim beads were replaced with Morse code, which actually spells out the message, "We win when we work willingly." This design was a rallying cry for Canadians, reminding them of their contributions to the Allied war effort. Thomas Shingles, an iconic engraver who joined the Canadian Mint in 1939, meticulously hand-cut the master matrix for this design, marking the first time a Canadian coin was entirely designed, engraved, and struck within the country. The historic matrix is now preserved and on loan to the National Currency Collection at the Bank of Canada in Ottawa. The 1944 tomback nickel is one of the rarest and most intriguing coins from this era. While tomback was predominantly used in the years 1942 and 1943 for Canadian nickels, a small batch of approximately 8,000 coins were produced in 1943 in tomback, but were accidentally dated 1944. This is according to the Royal Canadian Mint's 1944 report. Of these 8,000 coins, only one example is known to currently exist today. It is certified as a VF35 by PCGS, and this coin sold for $52,000 at Heritage Auctions in 1999. It reappeared briefly in 2018 with an asking price of hundreds of thousands of dollars, but remained unsold. Now, some of the histories and origins of how this rare and legendary nickel came into existence. By 1944, the Mint began experimenting with the chromium-plated steel to further conserve precious materials. These coins featured the same iconic Victory design, but had a shiny chrome finish. A small number of 1944 and 1945 nickels were actually not chrome-plated, resulting in a duller appearance, and these are generally much more rare and valuable. While these missing chrome varieties do exist, grading services no longer officially recognize them due to the possibility of chemicals removing the plating. Canadian World War II nickels are more than just currency. They are symbols of Canada's resourcefulness and resilience during a time of global conflict. From their striking designs to their historical significance, these coins remain a favorite among collectors and embody a unique blend of artistry, patriotism, and wartime necessity. The 1944 Canadian tomback is one of the most elusive and intriguing pieces in Canadian numismatics. With only one known example currently in existence, this coin remains a mystery to collectors and researchers alike. Its origins are surrounded by speculation and mystery, and its rarity makes it a highly coveted piece for those who can appreciate its historical significance. Now, there are two competing theories about how this legendary and unique coin came into existence. According to the Royal Canadian Mint's 1944 report, approximately $400 worth of tomback 5-cent coins, which is roughly equivalent to 8,000 pieces, were struck in 1943 but accidentally dated 1944. Before these coins could be released into circulation, the mint decided to switch to steel planchettes with nickel and chromium plating. As a result, nearly all of the 8,000 coins were melted down, leaving only one surviving specimen. This theory suggests that the coin was part of an intended issue that was ultimately scrapped. However, the whereabouts of the other 7,999 coins are currently unknown, and no other authentic examples have surfaced since the Michigan dealer John Abbott purchased his example at a 1982 auction. Another possible theory, which is supported by Canadian numismatic researchers Robert Aaron and Dr. James Haxby, proposes that the 1944 Tomback nickel was never an officially planned issue. Instead, it may have been a mint error that was struck on leftover Tomback planchettes that were mistakenly mixed in with steel planchettes during the production process. This theory aligns with observations of the coin's grade of a VF30, which indicates significant circulation wear. If the coin had been an intentional issue, it would have likely been preserved in mint condition by collectors. Its circulated state suggests that it was released into circulation accidentally, where it was used as ordinary currency, which is actually a really good sign for us because it means that a few more of these could have accidentally escaped into circulation as well. Now, identifying this unique coin involves several key features. The 1944 Tomback nickel shares the same composition as its 1942 and 1943 counterparts. It's made of the distinctive Tomback alloy, which is a brass-like metal and weighs 4.55 grams. These properties distinguish it from the lighter steel-based nickels which were produced later in 1944 and onwards. The coin bears the date of 1944 and will feature the iconic V or victory design with the Roman numeral of 5 in the center of the reverse. Its design is identical to other victory nickels, and it only stands apart due to its unique Tomback composition. This coin will have a yellowish hue, which will be characteristic of Tomback nickels, and it will lack the reflective surface typical of chromium-plated steel nickels. The duller appearance is a distinguishing feature of this coin. With only one example known to exist, the 1944 Tomback nickel is considered the rarest regular issue Canadian coin. Its unique status and mysterious origins have made it a subject of fascination in numismatic circles. The coin was last sold in the year 1999 for $52,000, but could easily command a much higher price today if it were to reappear in the market. Whether it was a planned issue or an accidental mint error, the 1944 Tomback nickel remains a testament to the challenges and ingenuity of the Canadian Mint during a time of global conflict. Until another example is discovered, this coin will continue to captivate collectors and stand as a symbol of Canadian numismatic history. Now, some of the details and specifications of any of these are off and may indicate that it is not an authentic example. The mintage figure for the 1944 Tomback is 8,000, but as was mentioned earlier, we do not know how many exactly survived. It is estimated that a good portion of them were melted down or destroyed. It is composed of a Tomback alloy. The coin is non-magnetic. It should have a weight of 4.54 grams, a diameter of 21.3 millimeters. The edge should be 12-sided or dodecagonal. The axis should be in metal alignment, which is the standard for Canadian, British, and Australian coins. The obverse of the coin was designed and engraved by Thomas Humphrey Paget, and the reverse by Thomas Shingles. Now, in terms of this coin's current value, the last time that it sold was in the year 1999. When it sold for $52,000, the coin went up for auction again in the year 2018, and the lister tried to sell it for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it actually did not sell. But currently the price is evaluated somewhere around $88,000, and the only one that is known and accounted for is graded VF35, which is pretty beat up and worn. If you were ever to find one of these and it scored any higher than that, you could easily be talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for this piece.